All right, welcome back, everybody. gE115, Engineering Graphics with AutoCAD, and the fourth week. So let's get going. I think in the fifth week, we'll have a midterm exam. So look at the calendar and make sure you're available for that. I'm going to want you to come in to the college to do it. And I need to make sure the software is running well there. But yeah. Couple weeks we'll be doing a midterm in class, so let me know if there's any problems with that. Today I'm going to talk about paper space and model space again, title blocks, and placing text at a specific height and full text control. I have a file open that I've been working on, so many of you have been asking, kind of what I do beyond teaching at the college. So I'm a mechanical engineer, but my hobby is building. I enjoy developing properties and making structures. So that's what I like to do. And I like the whole phase of it. So from design to positioning to support utilities, to building the structure, and then even some, landscaping and finishing off of the project. So currently working on a project up on Mount Hood, and I just like to show you how I have it set up in AutoCAD and kind of how I work with it, and the advantage of layouts. So when you use layouts, you can actually draw at kind of multiple scales, and then use those to create the drawings that you're going to print. So you can see here in model space, I have a site plan here that is going to be a completely different scale than actually a, elevation view or a foundation or a floor plan. So this is a tiny home, kind of a structure that exists on the property that I'm going to try and convert into some kind of a usable space until we build the big cabin. So you can draw in model space, right? And then you can set your layouts up. So here's the site plan. You can see my layouts down here at the bottom. The site plan is a completely different scale. This is a 1/16 to a foot, and that's just to get it on this piece of paper, this B-size paper. Shows things like the access road and the water supply, and then the dimensions of the property, and then with the septic area, replacement area, existing cabin, and future cabin, and there's some kind of a seasonal creek here. So the county's going to need a site plan for anything you do. So you always have to develop one of those. This isn't complete yet. It's missing some dimensions here. And there's some line type issues. That creek should not look like solid line. It should look like phantom line. Let's see what it looks like in model space, because often things don't look the same, but it does look the same here. So it just needs to be worked on. I have some kind of a weird line type going here. And if you ever want to see your line type, you just click on an object and it'll highlight that object or grip it, and then it'll show it to you right here, right in the properties area. So this is white. It is being controlled line thickness by layer, meaning the layers controlling it. I do have some layers set, and I haven't done layers yet. We'll do those in a week. But then also the line type here, and it's set to some kind of a hidden line or by layer, and it's on a layer that is controlling that. So I can override that and just make it continuous. Okay. And same with this one. Looks like it might be on the wrong layer, like on the setback layer, where it should be probably on the 0 layer, or if there was a property line layer. So a couple of different ways you can control that kind of stuff. All right, so then let's just toggle through how these work. The site plan, here's the layout. Notice that the title block is consistent as I go through. It's consistent in every one, and that's just because I copy and pasted, to the next layout as you make them. Let's see if I can slide this thing around. I think you should be able to grab it somehow. Oh, there we go. I don't know if that's going to help me, but I think it is. All right. So you can see them here. Here's the foundation. If I go to it, it is just showing that foundation drawing, right? So you kind of can zoom in if you're in model space, you can zoom in and get any piece you want. So just cruising along, you know, you have to remember to do things like change the title and the scale as needed. So this is a floor plan. So if I zoom, if I'm in paper space, I can zoom in and see this should say floor plan, and this should be an upgraded scale, not the same scale as the site plan. So there's a fair bit to keep track of, but once you get it going, it's not too difficult to work with. You know, if I want a new one, I want to make a completely new one, then I can just go and choose the one that I like maybe this electrical one. I can right click and I can move or copy. So you can make a copy of the layout. It'll bring the title block and everything. So I'll do that. I'll go move and then I'll say create a copy and okay. Now it always puts it here in the beginning, which I don't really like. I wish it put it in the end, but you can just click and drag these things and you can see a little black marker shows up, and I'll move it all the way out here to the end. Then, you know, I don't want it to be called electrical. You can rename these things, right, to whatever you want. Looks like this would end up to be A9. That's just my numbering system. You know, you can do it a number of different ways. This is how I do it. And that's right, sample. This is just a sample layout, right? So I would have to do now a number of things to get this correct. I'd have to, and I can just click on text to highlight it and change it to sample. And then I would want to obviously change this to A9 to keep my drawings in order, because we have to have some kind of organization to these things. And then once I start drawing and get things going, I would want to change the scale and maybe even the date. Like, okay, it's not 8/5, it's 10/13, oh, 10/11. Looks like it would fit very well, so I'm going to change it to just 21. Yeah, so that's kind of how you do it. You just work your way through it, right? You need to do that fairly quickly so you don't forget. That's easy to do when you have a drawing set. So this is a, excuse me, this is a drawing set that I will be submitting to the county for their approval. Okay, back to the site plan. Let's see what else I got. I got a floor plan. I got some elevations. Looks like maybe there's some girdling yet. I got a roof plan. It's not done. So I have a bunch of things. Now the elevations. So maybe you don't see how I'm going into model space and paper space, because remember you can go back and forth. So if you click in here, you go to model space. If you click out here, you go to paper space. So I don't have to go down to this button, which is good because my zoom stuff's in the way. All right, so in model space, then I can kind of zoom around and find my stuff. And this is going to be elevations, right? So that's going to be these. Now, I may need to end up moving this foundation further away because I don't want it in my elevations, right? So I can go to model space and come in here and just move. But once you get stuff done, you know, it's really great to be able to make these kind of changes. So now if I go to elevations, you know, that's gone. And I can kind of center this up, and then I could work with the scale, whatever the scale needs to be. That's not a 16th. It's back to like an 8. Nope. Quarter. Oh, okay. It's going to be tight to get in the dimensions, but in the elevations, you don't have to put a lot of dimensions. They just want to see all sides of the structure. Okay. All right. So that probably messed up the foundation. No, it didn't. Look at that. Staying right in there. So that's great. All right. So that's just a little bit of, you know, how I use it. you can see I have a number of layouts, and this is for an architectural project. If I had a mechanical engineering project, I might have some different views than this. I might have some section views of a part, a top view, a front view, and a side view instead of these things like floor plan and elevations. They're the same kind of thing, right? They're looking down and looking from the side. They just are named differently. All right, so I'm going to go to my my new one. This is how often they come to you, and I'm just going to talk about making a title block because that's what your assignment is. So you're going to make a title block, and then you're going to do some drawings, and you're going to have to control text. So let's go through that. When you come into a layout, you can see that this is a small piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, and I can just tell that by proportions. If I want to change that, I just right-click and go into Page Setup. So right-click right on there, Page Setup. Again, you might want to pause and try some of this and just walk along with me. Okay, so I'm going to modify it. And then what it looks like is a printer setup, but it's not. It's a page setup. Very much looks like a printer, and you can actually set your printer. So I have a little OfficeJet Pro. The problem with that is it just doesn't support a big piece of paper. So there's no 11 by 17 because it doesn't support it. So you don't want to do that if you don't have that, right? So I'll just leave it at Adobe. And of course, Adobe will support anything. I can get all the giant sizes pieces of paper, and I can get a B size 11 by 7, or I can get architectural B, which is, you know, pretty much the same thing, 12 by 18. But the usable spaces are probably 11 by 17. So, all right. So however you want to do that, that's fine. B size paper or 11 by 17. You can see the numbers change though. So they are a little bit different. Okay. And I'll say, okay. So that gives me a larger piece of paper, but my viewport is still kind of small. So I'm just going to click on it, and I am in paper space. You have to be to do this maneuver. I'm going to drag it out, but I don't want it to be outside the dotted line. Okay. I want it to be inside the dotted line because that means it will print. Dragging it out. There, right? So now I have a large viewport. It's going to support a lot of information. You can see part of my drawing just starting to sneak in right there. And if I went to model space and panned, you'll see that it would show up. I'm going to keep it off screen. Back to paper space. So in paper space is where I want to make my title block. So you're going to use the title block on page 122. And I have it kind of loaded up. I'll switch cameras and you can see that it's here. I've already kind of flipped the paper and I'll try to zoom in. Now, what I said in your directions is just use the part below the AMCO design ink. So that's this highlighted pink part. That's good enough. It doesn't give us any size. So I said, make the assumption that it's 4 by 2. So, and then you can just assume sizes here. So that's what we'll do. In paper space, I can just draw normally. And it's going to understand that I am in paper space and there'll be no scaling. It's just like drawing straight on the piece of paper. Okay. So I'm actually going to use a coordinate, a relative coordinate, shift at, and I'm going to go -4, 2. So that'll be 4 on the left and 2 up, and that just gives me a marker, right? So then I can go there. I'm just going to go all the way around, and I am going to draw right on my viewport. So I have some double lines there, but that's just so it's separate, and I could actually copy it if I wanted to other areas. It'll be a full rectangle. Okay. And I'm going to leave this diagonal line on because I'm going to put this kind of this middle line in the middle, which means if I grab the mid of this, like if I go line and just grab that midpoint and come across, then I got it. I don't have to do any kind of upper level math in my head, right? So that's 1 inch above, 1 inch below. I could use extend to extend this line over to here. You can also just drag it. So if you click on it, you'll get what's called grips. And you can grab the end grip and just drag it. And just make sure your green line or that midpoint snap shows up, right? Because then you know you've got it for sure. I'll just erase that line. So, if you've seen the offset command, but it's super handy. I just type off, it comes up, offset. First thing it wants to know is your spacing. So I'm going to go up 0.5 because I think that upper section is 1. And then you just select it, boom, and send it. So that's how that works. And then I'm going to, it looks like the bottom section maybe is, not, I'm going to say it was broken to thirds. So maybe I'm doing this wrong. Maybe I need to put one in the middle. Right? Looks like it's maybe a third, and a third. So I'm going to do it that way. So what's a third of 2 inches? Maybe 2/3. 0.666 basically. So I don't need to be, it is just a title block. So I'm going to do offset and I'm going to specify the distance. Let's see if it'll take 2/3. I'm going to put in 2/3. It looks like it did. So I'm going to go there and then I'm going to go there. Okay. So then the bottom section, since it's a third, right? And I'm going to go 1/2 of a third. What is that? 1/6? Maybe. Let's try it. Offset. So I'm just using fractions to come up with this because, oops, that's not right. So now I'm going to construct it because I really don't want to do the math. So I'm just going to do a diagonal line. Right, and then guess what? I'm going to grab the midpoint of it. Yep. But let me show you one other thing. You can also offset through a point. So offset. And you can see that there's options. If I hit the arrow down button, that's what that little symbol is. I can't write there. That little symbol means, hey, there's some options to this command. So this is the offset command. And there's a number of things I can do. One of them is put a distance in. That's what we just did. The next one is go through a point. So it says select object to offset. I'll select that. And then it says specify the through point. And I'll choose the mid. And it offsets through that point. So super handy. All right, so now it's looking better, closer to that. And you probably can keep going here, but I want to place some text. Okay, I'm going to place the Amco Design Inc. Now, there's a few ways to do this. If you want it perfectly centered, then you need to mark that center point. So I am going to draw a line. This would be, what engineers do. We like things precise and perfect. The reason I do this diagonal line is I know the midpoint is the exact geometric center. Okay. So now I'm going to do a single line of text. And it says specify the start point. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose that as my start point. Okay. And then it says specify the angle. I'm just going to hit enter to accept 0 because I do want it horizontal. Then I'm going to try and just type. We'll see what happens. A, N, C, O. And you get to put in whatever name you want, right? So with single line text, you have to enter twice and it places it. All right, so what it did was it placed it by the default justification of lower left. All right, well, I don't want that. I want it to be in the exact middle. So we have to choose a different justification. So I'm going to do another single line of text. And it says specify the start point. Or let's push the arrow down button. and see what we get. So we can change the style, but we can also justify. So when you choose justify, you have a lot of options. Left, center, right, align, and middle. But you'll have to know what all those means. All those mean to use them. But then there's this. There is top left, top center, top right, middle left, middle center, middle right, and bottom left, center, and right. I bet middle center is the exact middle of the text. I think this middle is too, but I don't use that one. I use middle center. Once you choose that, then you have to specify the middle point right there, the rotation angle again, which is going to be 0, and then type A, N, C, O, D, E, S, I, G, N. And you can see that it's going in by the middle center point and automatically centering it twice, and it places it perfectly. Okay, so get rid of that one and then get rid of that. So you use construction lines a lot, right? If I wanted to add the ink, I could just double click on it, space INC. Okay. All right, so that is the justification of text and how you get it exactly where you want it. You know, these, it's completely up to you how you justify and center those. These two should be centered up just like I've shown you, just for practice purposes. All right, I hope that helps with title blocks and your homework assignment. If you need anything, then just reach out to me and I can make a specific video on that topic. Let's see how your text goes as far as your model space and annotative text and how it shows up in the layout. The other thing to look for is if you are using some line types in layout, sometimes that behavior acts differently in layout than it does in model space. So you really got to look it over carefully before you hit print, create your PDF, and then also submit the AutoCAD file and the PDF both. All right, good luck. I hope you're all well, I hope you all are well. And I will be there this Thursday. So if you want to come and chat and do some AutoCAD together, come on in. And take care.